Hi, Christy.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had, we've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it the why and the buy.
All right.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Why and the Buy podcast. This is Christie Walters, and I am here with my partner and friend, Jeff Bajorek. How's it going, Jeff?
Oh, it's great. Great day to be alive. It's a Tuesday afternoon. We record a podcast on Tuesday afternoon. You may have heard it. It's called The Why and the Buy.
Absolutely.
I'm such a dork.
That's okay. It's endearing, I promise.
I hope so, because, man, help me. Christy, is this episode 55? Is this episode? This is the last episode of 2017. 57?
57.
How did that happen?
I know. Isn't that wild? Like a year ago, we were like, oh, maybe we should do a podcast.
It was actually like a year and a half ago because we dragged our feet for at least 6 months.
We did drag our feet for a while.
I mean, we're here for an entire year, and if you're listening to this fresh, if you're a subscriber, which we hope you are, please go subscribe. It's been a year. This is the last episode of 2017. You may be surprised, you may not be surprised, but we've decided to renew ourselves rather for season 2. And it's always nice to get a renewal from the boss, right?
Yeah.
But I think a great way to tie this up is to look back on the previous 56 episodes. God help you if you go back and listen to number 1 and then contrast it with number 57 here, because we are, I feel anyway, completely different podcast hosts, if not completely different people by this point. It's really been something to be a part of this over the course of a year. I mean, what are some of the biggest things that stand out to you, Christy, in terms of things that you've learned or realized by being a part of this?
Yeah, I was reflecting on this morning, actually, and believe it or not, I went back and listened to episode 5, which was our goal-setting episode, which is our top-rated episode of all time.
Wow.
Quite interesting because there's no guest, it's just you and me. But here's the interesting part. I think that what I learned from year ago, Christy, a year ago, Jeff.
Christie Walters, vintage 2016.
That's right, vintage 2017, yeah. So is that we had so much excitement about getting started with this process. And we're also fairly new as business owners. And so there's a lot of things that we are going through on a day-to-day basis that really resonated with our audience. It was interesting to me that some of the most popular people that we brought onto the podcast, people with the biggest followings, weren't actually our most popular podcast episodes. And a lot of it was because people would just relate in a different way to the topics that we brought on. Now, we were number 1 with goal setting, but it was very closely followed by Liz Windling and Chris Cebollero, Chichi Okeezy. So we had some really interesting experts come onto the podcast as well. And I thought it was fascinating to me to listen to our thought process in that episode number 5, which was recorded and released, I think, at the very beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. And how that trying to think about that in terms of how that would resonate with our audience. And I think it's really just that we're authentic. We're here and we're raw, and we're not perfect, and we've got certain things that we struggle with and certain things that we do exceptionally well. And I think the other thing that's interesting about you and I is that we're not the same. We balance each other out fairly well. And that's been a fascinating observation.
Well, I don't want to spend this entire episode talking about how great we are, but
why not?
Well, I mean, if we're not going to do it, who is, right? But I noticed that probably 3 or 4 months into it, so probably late spring, we had guests come on and we'd finish these interviews and they say, "Man, you guys are good together."
Yeah.
And so that was a realization, because you don't always understand how good you are at something or how poor you are at something until someone else from a different point of view tells you. And the fun thing was, it was right about that time where we were bringing on guests that we had never met before. I mean, it's funny when we look back at what we started, and it was like, all right, we should talk. And then it was, whoa, what happens if we run out of stuff to talk about? Because, I mean, hey, I'm just Jeff and you're just Christy. And are we really going to be able to keep this up? We should get our friends on. Yeah, let's get our friends on. So you started inviting people to come on, and they bring their audience with them, kind of. But everybody had good stuff to, good stuff to talk about. Every single one of our guests contributed something meaningful. And there is something that anybody who listened was able to glean from those episodes. And I think, to me, that shows that, expertise comes from a lot of different places, and there is always expertise to be found if you're willing to look. And we get back to curiosity and just asking good questions and really genuinely being interested. And we had some people on here who asked great questions and gave great answers. And maybe they're not household names when you look at who are our highest rated or highest downloaded episodes, but these are people who had real gems and pearls of wisdom to be able to share with people. And I think if there is, if the first lesson that I think I learned that I'd like to share right now is that if you are really genuinely curious, you will find great stuff no matter where you look. But you have to be patient. You have to be curious. You have to be interested. Yeah. And that's always served me well in my sales career. And I think that you can write that down as a take-home message from this episode, that if you are genuinely curious and interested, you will find great things. And part of the fun is wondering what that great thing is going to be.
Yeah. And I tell you, the other thing that I've learned is that sometimes good is good enough. You and I talked about this ad nauseum, right? Is that it's not about making it perfect. And I hated those first few episodes because I just wanted to go back and clean up every little statement, and I wanted to pick a better word, and I wanted to do all the things that perfect Christy would do.
Right.
And the reality is nobody wants that, right? They want the real interaction. And there's something to be said for being professional on our podcast and handling things well and being organized, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think if I've learned anything over this last year, it's that what people need to know is, what do you stand for? Mm-hmm. What are you here to do? Why does this matter to me? Answer those things authentically, and then all of a sudden it doesn't have, there's no need for perfection.
Well, and there's a reason that we had this idea to start a podcast to begin with, right? I mean, we had these conversations. We were on the phone once a month and just talking. And it's like, wait a second, we should share this. And when we were on those calls, it was not about trying to be perfect. It was about me struggling with something, and I knew that Christy would have an answer, or Christy was stuck on something and Jeff might have an idea for me. And that's where this started. So to try to scrub it up and make it perfect to begin with, right off the bat, I mean, of course we're better at it now than we were. We've got a producer now who scrubs up our audio and makes us sound better and cleaner and clearer than we did before. And we have our interview technique down, and we have our flow about us. I mean, we didn't have that stuff to begin with. So, of course, we weren't as good at the beginning as we are 57 episodes later. But the source of why we started, our why, has not changed. And, it's kind of foolish to, if we think back on it now, why would we want to make it sound perfect? The reason we wanted to do this was because we knew we weren't.
Right. Well, and that's what people relate to anyway, because nobody is. Let's face it. Those that sound perfect are perfect because they've got an army of people back there scripting and making it so. And that's not what we're about. I mean, it's really about connecting with the audience and just sharing our thoughts on certain topics. And the other thing that's kind of interesting and fascinating about this whole experience is that I feel like I've gotten 35 or so. I should have counted that up before we got on today, exactly how many guests we've had, over 30 for sure on this podcast. I feel like I got 30 coaching sessions right? And it was just a cool way to connect with people, oftentimes that we never met before.
Right. And I want to break from that just a second and go back to what you were talking about earlier, about being perfect.
Yeah.
You, the listener, your customer does not want you to be perfect. Your customer wants you to be real. And I want you to understand that. And you can flip back, hit the 15-second rewind button and listen to that again. Your customer does not want, nor do they expect you to be perfect. Stop trying to be perfect. Start being real. Right. Look them in the eye when you talk to them. Admit that you have a struggle from time to time. People buy from people, and they want to know that they're dealing with someone who is authentic as you expect them to be. Because, I've been around those water coolers before where salespeople are talking about why the customer's saying one thing and doing another thing, and why they're acting a fool, and why you can't get a straight answer out of them. And everything. They do not feel comfortable being authentic around you because you clearly do not feel comfortable being authentic around them. And that means admitting that you are not perfect because you are not a machine. So I want you to appreciate that. I want you to know it and live it and understand it for what it is, because that authenticity is going to do you more good than harm. And if it does you any harm, that was not going to be a long-term customer to begin with. I've got the perspective of 15 years in sales to be able to say that now, and that's just the truth. So, fast forwarding now to what you were saying there, Christie, about 30 coaching sessions. I mean, yeah, we got coached by 30 different people. People had all kinds of great things to say, and as I mentioned before, I mean, stuff that half those interviews went places I did not expect them to go, and over the initial
the unscripted interview, by
the way, the getting over the initial anxiety of where they could go, and then seeing them go places, and it kind of it represented an evolution of where our show and our talents had come or had gone, because at first we tried to script so many things so that we didn't go totally sideways and lose our train of thought. After a while, we came to just dance with that concept, with that risk, if you will, because we had more confidence in our skills, but we also had more confidence that we were bringing the right people on. And we also knew that the beauty of those interviews was where they could go. It gets back to that curiosity and curiosity and patience and interest, I think, are really three overriding themes for me, and where I sit as I think about 2018 and going forward is I am anxious about what could come because I'm excited about what could happen in 2018, but I'm not trying to force anything. Right? It's about just seeing where this thing is going and just kind of watching the whole thing evolve. I've had fun for the last year, and it's something worth doing, and that's why we're moving forward next year with more. Yeah,
we're more than doubling down on that one.
Oh, geez.
We'll tease that in a second. So, do you have a favorite guest?
That's like picking a favorite child, Christie.
I know, but
not off the top of my head. I don't.
No.
There were a lot of people that I really enjoyed having on. Don the Idea Guy is a blast to talk to.
And he will be back next year. Just wait. Because that guy, and the other thing too, if you're not following Don the Idea Guy online, you're not getting his 5-minute post-its or
the big yellow sticky. BigYellowSticky.com, yes.
He just gets it. I mean, that guy has the most creative mind and says things in just the right way. I love reading his stuff.
Mm-hmm. Don the Idea Guy was one of my favorites. Liz Wendling is someone that I speak to on a regular basis still. She always inspires me with the conversations that we have. Mike and Mike from the Catalyst Sale podcast, those are two really sharp dudes. We were very fortunate to have a little home and home week with them. We were on their podcast and they were on ours in the same week, right over around Halloween. Mike Simmons and I have interacted regularly on Twitter for probably the past 6 months, and it's really, really been fun. That guy gets it, and he makes me better. And I mean, there are so many guests. We had off the top of my head, without the list in front of me, I know I'm blanking on people. I can name the recent people, right? I mean, Steve Noodleberg was on. Mm-hmm. He fired everybody up. I have friends that I met online that were guests. Christina Evans was our guest back in the spring. Shannon Peng was our guest a little bit later in the spring. Amal Williams was on recently. I've done projects and pseudo podcasts with them, little kind of mini events here and there. I'm going to feel bad for forgetting some of the other people that we've had on, but there's just been great people. Almost every week there's somebody new. That's a lot of fun.
I tell you, the one that really resonated with me the most was our conversation with Phil Murphy.
Oh.
And that, I just like that conversation, one, because I had several subsequent conversations with sales leaders in their organizations after that one. And I think we had even posted out something about, if you're a sales leader in your organization, you have to listen to this episode. Yes. He just had so many unique gems there. I know he's an incredible mentor of yours, and I really enjoyed that one. I also, Steve Noodleberg, I'm a huge fan of his. I love interacting with him even today. My friends, Tracy Larson over at We Suite, Chichi Okizi. We had Mary Lou Tyler and Christian Zhivago, who have both been very big. Christian especially has been a huge supporter of the podcast. And I know I wasn't able to talk with her then, but you had a good discussion. And
that was one of the most impactful discussions I had all year, on the podcast or off. The time that I spent with Kristen was tremendously valuable to me. And she has been supporters of us, and I have tried to support her as well in terms of sharing some of her knowledge. I've shared her knowledge with with my audience through my newsletter. I've retweeted a lot of her things. She's just someone who gets it, and she's been in sales for a long time. She's been in marketing for a long time. She tells the story, fairly often about being a wide-eyed, fresh-faced, brand new sales rep, getting ready to go out there and just having it handed to her for the first couple of weeks, and and we've all been there when we get into sales, like, wait a second, what the hell did I just get myself into? But she rallied, and she learned, and she developed her talents, and she's very, very bright. And she just, her agency is doing very, very well, and she just brings a level of experience and expertise in such a common sense manner. She does things because they're the right things to do, because they make sense, and it seems pretty simple, but it's not always that simple. She was great. And Phil Murphy, it's funny. I don't know how many conversations I've had like that with Phil over the years. And he's someone who has taught me a lot. And he is someone who will tell you has learned a thing or two from me too. And that always feels good to have someone like that come on and talk about that. And it's just, this becomes a forum in so many ways to talk to so many people about great stuff. And, not everybody has to have a podcast. There are companies out there who make money producing podcasts who will tell you that you need a podcast. I don't know that everybody needs a podcast, but the forum to just get on and talk about selling. Hey, you got a new book out? All right, cool. Well, we'll be sure to mention the book, but will you just come on and talk about prospecting with us? Because that's kind of what we want to talk about right now. Oh, great. Right. And then and then little stuff comes out when you're ready to embrace the idea that anything can happen. It's funny what does.
Yes, isn't it though? So speaking of anything can happen, you want to tease for our audience what's going to go happen next year?
No, you won't confuse me with someone who gets called a tease. Here it is. You want it? No? Okay, moving on. How do I don't even know how to start, Christy. We're going big in 2018. We discussed a couple of different iterations for how we wanted to do this. We know that we want to do more because we felt like, and this was kind of funny, we talked, and you mentioned this earlier, some of our best listened to and most downloaded episodes are the ones where it's just me and you talking. And to me, that means that those were shared because they resonated and they were worth sharing. And there are also, though, what we get out of this is the opportunity to talk to great people. And so we didn't want to sacrifice one for the other. So we just decided to do it all. And we talked about doing 3 episodes a week. We talked about doing 5 episodes a week. We talked about, oh my God, are we going to do any real work besides talk to each other on a podcast?
Exactly. We're going to have to get a lot of sponsors if we did that.
Yeah. And how are we supposed to get sponsors if we're too busy talking to each other?
That's right. There you go.
So you had, I think, a brilliant idea for a format that we're rolling out, and we are guaranteeing at least 140 episodes of The Why and the Buy in 2018. And what I think is the coolest about our format is that it's different. I've not seen another one like it out there. I've seen some that are similar, but you can do the 5 episodes a week, the 4 episodes a week, the 2 episodes a week, whatever it is you want to do. But we've broken it up really on a month-to-month basis. And you know what? That's how your sales territory is being managed anyway. So we might as well take this a month at a time. But we're going to do an episode at the beginning of the month that is going to kick off the month. We're going to do an episode at the end of the month that is going to wrap that month off. Wrap that month up, rather. Each week, there will be a success story. That's what we're going to call our interviews. And each
cool people doing cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, great stories. Everybody likes to hear a great story. And a great story about someone who is doing something that maybe you're doing, or maybe you're not doing, or maybe you are just going to be inspired by the way they did it. Okay, I mean, I think back to our interview with Sean Ogle from a couple of weeks ago. Here's a guy who was faced with a lot of adversity and said, forget it, I'm moving to Thailand. Wait, what? I'm going to move to Thailand. I'm going to think about what's really important to me. I'm going to think about what's really important to me, and then I'm going to build a business and a life around that. So that's what success stories are going to be about.
Yeah. I'm excited because one of the things that we're also implementing going into this next year are what we call Monday Musings. And I will give a huge shout out to Jordan Harbinger with The Art of Charm, because he has an episode each week that records an actionable item, something that you can take and implement in your life right away every week. And that's kind of the spirit behind our Monday Musings, is that it will either be Jeff or I on those episodes. They'll be very short snippets, 5 to 10 minutes, and just to be able to kind of share what's on our mind and what we're focusing on that week. And hopefully you'll join us for those as well. And I think that's going to be an interesting little departure from what we've done up to this point.
Well, you don't always want an interview. And you don't always have 30 minutes. I was sitting, recently with some people. Actually, at my kitchen table, I had my marketing people in. Liz Borkert, who did our cover design and everything, she was sitting with me. And the group of us were just kind of sitting around. And I'm like, how do people have time to listen to all these podcasts? I've got half a dozen friends who have podcasts, so I want to make sure I support their stuff. I've got the big thought leaders out there who are great interviewers or talk about fun stuff. I could spend 10 hours a day listening to podcasts. The problem is I don't have the attention span for 10 hours a day, and I don't have the 10 hours a day because I've got other work to do. And so you don't always have time for something like that. But in 5 to 10 minutes, and, let's think about it. If you amplify the speed a little bit, we're talking 3 to 6 minutes, right? You can learn a lot. And what we want to do is give you something on a weekly basis that is just going to stick in the back of your mind and make you think. Yeah. And that's what, Christie, that's what you do really, really well. That's what I think I do really, really well, is give you something to chew on, to gnaw on, to just in your spare moments to think about, how can I implement that? And, I don't know how many times I've been in front of an audience, for 2 hours or 4 hours, and you're doing a lot of this work, this hands-on work. And it's like, okay, listen, if I can just make this point, if you take this point home in the first 5 minutes, it typically comes up in very early on in the talk or the workshop. But if you can take this point home, you're going to be immediately successful. And I'm like, well, what are the other hour and 55 minutes for? You just need this one point. So every week you're going to get one of those points.
Right.
And I think the monthly theme also offers us the opportunity, as well as the success and the sustained success of the first year of this podcast, offers us the opportunity to bring a thought leader on. I want to bring a big household name on once a month to talk about, from a high level, from their level of experience, what it is that got them to that level of success. And I want to be able to relate that to the theme of the month. And when you add all that stuff up, it's not just 3 episodes a week, but we're talking, it's 140 episodes a month when we did the math. I'm sorry, not 140 episodes a month. It's 140 episodes a year.
No, don't sign us up for that.
No. 3 a day. No one's doing 3 a day. Christy, we can really corner the market on 3 a day podcast. But, we also have some plans for some stuff. We're going to, do some remotes. I am planning to go to the Sales Success Summit in Austin.
Yes, I'm going to be there too. I made my commitment.
And we're going there to interact with people like you who hopefully will join us there. People like you who just want to get better at selling and want to get better at sales and want to learn what people in their respective industries are doing to put them at the top. Scott Ingram's a guy who was on our podcast twice. And, you want to talk about someone who's distilling sales success one top performer at a time. There's a guy who's got a bi-monthly podcast, and all he brings on are top performers. I want to be surrounded by talent like that. Yeah. I've got to make sure that I get there, and that's what we're doing. And in the show notes here, you can link to that event. We've tweeted it out several times. We've shared it on LinkedIn. It's a really cool event that Scott's putting on. It is top1.fm/summit. And that's happening in the first part of May in Austin. And is there a better place to be in the first part of May than Austin?
Right, and remember we have our own landing page there too. It's why buy 2, right?
Yes, the top1.fm/whybuy2. That is where you can access some of the citations that Scott has given us. Whenever this is a thing this is a thing that I've learned, and it's something that I think we need to work into our shows going forward. Is Scott does a brilliant job of whenever he tells a story about, especially as it relates to someone who's been on his podcast, he then has a way to link to the exact spot in the podcast that he mentioned, and you can listen to it straight from the source. It's really, really clever. And, for the 2 times that he was on, he gave us those links to his work where you can go back and check that out. And so you can go to visit the Scott Ingram episodes on our iTunes page or on our Overcast page or our Stitcher page, wherever you get this podcast. But there is a promo code for that summit. And if you use the promo code Y, you save $150 on your admission to that event. So Scott is trying to give you something as a result. And so you should definitely come out and hang out with us. There are probably a couple other pop-up events that we're going to want to record live from, or at least do some interviews live. And, hey, I'm just kind of sitting back and watching how this is all going to happen and seeing what could happen and wondering what's possible. And we'll see where that goes. But we've got at least one remote event that we're going to record from this year.
Yeah, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you've been listening to The Why and the Buy for a few months now, reach out to us. You can email us at info@thewhyandthebuy.com. You can email us at thewhyandthebuy@gmail.com. Connect with us on social media. Pretty much any of the social media outlets, it will be The Why and the Buy. We would love for you to rate us. That's the holy grail in the podcasting world. If you're on iTunes, go out and give us a 5-star rating. As Jeff always says, it's just as easy to do 5 as it is to do 4. So give us a 5-star rating and interact with us. One of the objectives for us going into this next year is to interact with our audience more. We want to know what it is you want to hear. Who do you want us to talk about? What books do you want us to review? Those are going to be some of the things that we're going to be looking for this next year. So step up and engage with us. I think it will make a big difference in what we can provide for you going forward.
Well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the next step and the next iteration of that. I would actually trade a review for a sign up. We've got a newsletter. We've got a mailing list that we've created. And what you're going to get as a mailing list subscriber is kind of behind the scenes access of what we're doing. We've got a guest blog article that we're going to feature in every monthly newsletter. And this is not something that's going to cram your inbox with something every day that you don't want to see. It's going to be direct communication from us that previews the month, that gives you a little bit of a prior month in review, and also introduces the Why and the Buy book club. So every month we're going to read a book as a group, whoever wants to participate. At the end of the month, we are going to do a live podcast recording. And if you want to participate, you want to interact with us, you want to hop on the call, please do. We've got plenty of room in this Zoom room. And read the book along throughout the month with us. Come on, interact with us. We will record that meeting, that call, and we're going to distribute it, but not through the traditional channel. You will only be able to get that book review podcast episode if you're a subscriber to the list. And so what we want to do is have a higher level of interaction with you, the loyal listener, and we want to do so in a very personal way. And we want to give you something that nobody else can get. And I think that all ties together really well and helps us to provide a more succinct, a more tailored experience to you. And I don't think there are a lot of podcasts out there, particularly sales podcasts, who are or that are providing that kind of access and that kind of experience. If you want to be on a show, come on.
Yep, we'd love to have you.
So
I agree.
Look for that first issue very, very soon. You can go to thewhyandthebuy.com and you can opt into that. We cherish your information. We don't sell it. I'm not interested in distributing it. I just need to know how you want us to contact you and communicate with you. And on a monthly basis, you will be able to receive that communication from us. And it'll be a nice little way to package each month and preview the next. So very much looking forward to that and the increased intimacy that we'll have with our audience that way.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're not going to share anything more. We've already shared probably more detail than we expected to. But that's, hey, there we go.
Big things are coming. That's the point.
They are. And I'm really excited about it. I think there's a lot of very cool things coming in 2018 for the Why and the Buy. And again, don't hesitate. Reach out to us, connect with us, email us directly. Jeff and I love to talk about sales. We love to talk about leadership. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And there's more coming. There's more coming on Christie's end. There's more coming on my end. We don't have all those plans finalized, but thank you. I want to wrap up this episode in this year and I can't do it personally. I wish I could. But as personally as possible through the airwaves here, thank you for being a listener. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for trusting us with your earbuds. Thank you for looking to us for advice. And thank you for showing up every week. Rest assured, we will continue to show up for you and in 2018 and beyond. So thank you for being here. Christie, I know my why. Do you know yours?
Oh, I do. And when you know your why, your hows and your whats get much better.
Every damn time.
That's right. So signing off from Detroit and Atlanta.
Happy New Year, everybody. See you in 2018.
See you then.
I told you once, I've told you twice. I told myself it doesn't matter.
How about the music on this podcast? We call them our house band. They call themselves Haskins, and they're based out of Plymouth, Michigan. If you want to hear more from them, go to haskinsmusic.com and check them out. Hey, thanks for listening to us on the Why and the Buy podcast. If you like us, tell us. Send us a message at the Why and the Buy on Twitter, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you got this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Talk to you next week.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.